I was at the park pushing my daughter Sienna on the swing when a man I'd never seen before walked straight toward us. His expression was calm but intense, like he had something important to say. I stepped in front of my daughter, instinctively protective, and before I could ask what he wanted, he said, "You're in danger. He's not who you think he is." I laughed, nervously, awkwardly, because who says that in the middle of a playground? But then he pulled a photo from his jacket and held it out. I took one glance, and my heart dropped. It was my husband. Same face, same eyes. But the name written on the back wasn't Miles Lennox. It was Devin Reese. My whole body went cold. I looked at the man and whispered, "What is this?" He said, "It's who he really is. And you need to be careful." That moment changed everything. I didn't know it then, but the life I thought I was living had already unraveled. It was one of those perfect spring Sundays, the kind where everything feels soft and quiet. The sun was warm, the breeze was just enough to keep the air moving, and the park was full of parents trying to squeeze joy into the weekend before Monday showed up again. I had packed a small picnic for Sienna and me. She's 5, curious, loud, full of energy in the way only a little girl with a free heart can be. She'd insisted on wearing her favorite rainbow dress and sparkly sneakers, which didn't match at all but made her feel like she could fly. We'd been coming to that park every week since she was 2. It was our place. The swings creaked, the slide needed repainting, and the benches were always a little too hot. But it was familiar. It was safe, or at least it felt that way. I sat with my sketch pad in my lap while she ran toward the climbing frame. I'm an illustrator, mostly children's books these days, and when she plays, I like to draw her. Her hair bounces in these little curls when she runs, and sometimes I catch the exact angle of her smile in a way that feels like magic. I remember thinking how lucky I was in that moment, how full my life felt, how calm. My husband, Miles, was supposed to be in Atlanta on a work trip. He's a consultant for a tech company. His job always sounded vague when he explained it, full of phrases like systems integration and legacy migration. Honestly, I never really understood what he did, but I trusted him. He worked long hours, sometimes traveled on short notice, but he always called every night and brought Sienna something small from wherever he'd been. A snow globe from Chicago, a bracelet from Austin, a stuffed animal from Denver. We'd been married 7 years. We met at a professional development conference in D.C. I was doing freelance design work back then, trying to grow my portfolio. He gave a talk on branding strategy. I don't remember what he said on stage, but I remember how confidently he moved, how calm his voice was. Afterward, we ended up at the same coffee table in the lobby. He asked me what I did, listened like it mattered, and smiled like he already knew how it was going to end. It was fast. 3 months later, we moved in together. A year after that, we were married. A small wedding, just a few friends, and my mom. My dad passed away when I was 19, and I didn't have much family around. Miles didn't talk about his past much. He said his parents died when he was young and he'd been raised by an aunt who'd passed too. At the time, it made sense. He wasn't cold, just private. I figured that's how some people are. He was thoughtful in ways that counted. He brought me tea when I was sick. He sat through hours of cartoons with Sienna without complaining. He rubbed my back when I had nightmares. He made me feel safe, seen. He didn't always open up, but he never gave me a reason not to trust him. That morning, before we left for the park, he texted to say his flight was delayed and he'd probably be back late. I texted back a picture of Sienna holding her stuffed lion with the caption, "She says Rory misses you." He replied with a heart emoji and told me to give her an extra hug from him. It was sweet, normal, simple. I had no reason to question anything. My biggest concern that day was whether we'd have enough time to stop for ice cream on the way home. That was it. No fear, no suspicion, just the steady rhythm of a life that felt built on love. When Sienna ran up to me asking for a juice box, I handed it to her and watched her sit cross-legged on the grass, unwrapping her sandwich like it was a gift. That's when I noticed the man standing at the edge of the playground. He wasn't doing anything wrong, just watching. Not her, though, me. He had a shaved head, a worn denim jacket, and eyes that didn't shift. He looked like someone with something to say. My first thought was that he might be a teacher or a neighbor I didn't remember. My second thought, which hit harder, was that I should grab my daughter and walk away. But I didn't. I held still, unsure, waiting to see if he would move. He did, and everything that came next started with that first step in my direction. He walked with purpose, not fast, not aggressive, but direct, like he knew exactly who I was and exactly what he needed to say. I stood up instinctively and moved in front of Sienna, my body shielding her as if he might try something. I could feel my heartbeat quicken, but I kept my voice calm when I said, "Can I help you?" He stopped about 5 feet away, lifted his hand slightly like he wanted me to know he wasn't a threat, and said, "I know this is going to sound insane, but you're in danger. I need to talk to you about your husband." My first reaction was confusion. My second was irritation. I looked around the park, hoping someone else might be witnessing this strange moment. A woman walked by with a stroller. 2 teenagers were tossing a frisbee near the picnic tables. Everything looked normal, but I didn't feel normal. I felt exposed. I narrowed my eyes. "I think you're mistaking me for someone else." He shook his head. "You're Arya Lennox. You're married to Miles Lennox. You have a daughter, Sienna." Every nerve in my body tensed. Hearing my name and my daughter's name from a complete stranger made my skin crawl. My instinct to run was immediate, but my feet didn't move. He reached slowly into his jacket. I stepped back and pulled Sienna behind me. "It's just a photo," he said quickly, "nothing else." He held out a small print, slightly crumpled at the edges. I took it with hesitation, my fingers brushing against his only for a second. When I looked down, my stomach turned. It was a picture of Miles, but not just Miles. He was holding a baby, maybe just a few months old, smiling wide. His hair was shorter and he looked younger, but it was him, no doubt. The man I had built my life with. The name written in neat block letters on the back of the photo was not Miles Lennox, it said, Devin Reese. I blinked hard. I looked at the man in front of me. "What is this?" He didn't answer right away. He let me absorb it. Then he said, "That's your husband's real name, or at least it used to be." The world around me blurred. The kids, the families, the bright spring day. They all disappeared behind the rush of questions flooding my head. I asked him, "Who are you?" "My name's Caleb. He used to work with my sister. She's the woman in that photo. That baby is her daughter. I've been looking for him for a long time." I stared at the picture again, trying to make sense of it. "Why are you coming to me? If you think he did something, go to the police." I tried. He's good at disappearing. He's changed names before, changed cities, left people behind. You're not the first one he's lied to, and you won't be the last. I didn't come to hurt anyone. I came to warn you. Sienna tugged at my hand. "Mommy, can I go back on the swings?" I crouched down and whispered, "Just stay right here by me for a minute, okay?" She nodded, her eyes wide and confused. She clutched Rory, her stuffed lion, against her chest. I turned back to Caleb. "If this is true, if he's done something wrong, I need more than a photo. I need proof. I don't have everything, not yet, but I know he's not who he says he is. And you deserve to know that." I wanted to scream. I wanted to call Miles right then and ask him what the hell was going on, but something inside me told me not to. I was still holding the photo. My fingers had started to shake. I didn't know what to believe, but I knew I couldn't just ignore this. I told Caleb to leave. I told him I needed time. He nodded and gave me a number written on a small slip of paper. "If you ever feel unsafe, or if something stops making sense, call me, even if it's months from now." Then he walked away, disappearing into the trees at the edge of the park. I stood there, holding that photo, trying to steady my breathing while Sienna tugged on my sleeve, asking if we could get ice cream now. I said yes, even though I couldn't taste a thing for the rest of the day. When we got home, I kept staring at the front door, wondering who would walk through it that night. Would it be the man I married? Or someone else entirely? Miles came home late, just like he said he would. He kissed me on the cheek, dropped his suitcase in the hallway, and asked how our day at the park went. I smiled and said it was nice. Inside, I was screaming. That night, after I put Sienna to bed, I sat on the edge of the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone. Miles was in the kitchen, pouring himself a drink. He looked relaxed, normal, like he wasn't hiding a second identity behind his soft voice and easy smile. He asked if I wanted wine. I shook my head. I didn't trust myself to hold a glass without dropping it. He sat beside me. His arm brushed mine. I felt my body tense, and I turned my shoulder slightly away. He didn't seem to notice. "Long day?" he asked. "Yeah, just tired," I said, eyes fixed on the TV. I couldn't tell you what was playing. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and within minutes, he was asleep on the couch. I watched him breathe, slowly and evenly. I studied his face. It was the same face I'd memorized years ago when we were first falling in love. The same face I saw in Sienna every time she smiled, but now it felt like a mask. I didn't make a plan. I didn't write anything down or call anyone. I just got up and moved quietly through the house. I started in the bedroom. I checked his nightstand drawer, the one I'd never had a reason to open, receipts, old pens, a watch he never wore. Nothing unusual. Then I went to the home office. His desk was always neat, almost obsessively so. He once told me he couldn't think clearly in clutter. I remembered teasing him about it, stacking sticky notes just to watch him unstack them. The bottom drawer had a lock. He'd told me it held business documents, contracts, tax files, things I wouldn't need to look at. I remembered something Caleb had said, that Miles was good at disappearing. I pulled every book off the shelf looking for a key. Nothing. Then I remembered a novel he always kept on his desk, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. I flipped through the pages and found it. A small silver key was taped behind the inside cover. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the drawer. Inside were 2 manila folders, a flash drive, and a small wooden box. I opened the first folder and found copies of identification documents, passports, driver's licenses, birth certificates, all with different names but the same photo. His photo. The second folder had photos I'd never seen. Him with another woman, him with a baby, him standing in front of a beach house with a name I didn't recognize written in the background. I opened the wooden box and found a wedding ring. Not the one he wore every day, a different one. Engraved inside were initials I didn't recognize. I sat down in the desk chair, stunned. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just sat there feeling like I was watching my own life from outside of it. I took out my phone and quietly snapped photos of everything. When I heard him stir in the living room, I put the files back, locked the drawer, and slipped the key back into the book. Then I went upstairs, brushed my teeth, and climbed into bed beside him. He didn't even wake up. The next morning, I got Sienna ready for preschool. I kissed her on the forehead, told her I loved her more than all the stars, and watched her skip inside with her backpack bouncing behind her. Then I drove back home and sat across from Miles at the kitchen table. He was reading the news on his phone, sipping coffee. I stared at him for a long time before I said anything. "What name do you want me to use?" I asked. My voice was steady, calm, completely unlike the storm inside me. He looked up, confused. "What do you mean? Devin Reese or one of the others?" He froze. His entire face changed, the color drained from his cheeks. He set the coffee mug down, slowly. I slid the photo across the table, the one with him, the baby, and the other woman. "I found the files," I said. "I saw the passports. I saw everything." He didn't speak right away. His eyes dropped to the photo. His shoulders slumped. When he finally looked at me, he didn't deny it. "I can explain," he said, barely above a whisper. "You'd better start," I said, "because I don't know who you are anymore, and I'm sitting here wondering if I've ever really known." He rubbed his face with both hands, took a deep breath, and said, "You weren't supposed to find out like this." I stared at him, my heart pounding, but my voice never wavered. "You lied to me, for years. About everything. You owe me the truth. All of it." He nodded slowly, and then he began to talk. He sat across from me, hands folded in front of him, like a student preparing for judgment. I watched his face closely, searching for any flicker of the man I married, the man who held our daughter in his arms and called her my whole world. What I saw instead was someone who looked tired, not just physically, but in the kind of way that comes from running too long. "My name was Devin Reese," he said. "That part is true." I didn't speak. I let him fill the silence. I needed him to. For once, he would have to explain everything. I was 26 when I took the job. It was a financial firm in New York. High pressure, big money, a lot of fast talking and fake smiles. I was good at it. Too good. I didn't realize at the time that I was helping the wrong people. I watched his jaw tighten. his voice steady but brittle. Eventually, I found out what the company was doing: tax fraud, laundering, offshore accounts tied to criminal organizations. I went to my supervisor. He told me to forget it, said if I didn't keep my mouth shut, I'd regret it. He looked down at the table and ran his hand across the grain in slow circles. I went to the authorities instead. I gave them everything: files, recordings, internal memos. It led to several arrests. People went to prison, big people, dangerous people. And then, I asked, forcing my voice to stay even, they offered me a choice: stay and take my chances or enter witness protection. I agreed to disappear. They relocated me to Colorado, gave me a new identity. Devin Reese became Miles Lennox. I was told never to make contact with anyone from my past, not even my own family. I followed the rules for a while. He paused, his eyes locked on mine, almost pleading for understanding. But the loneliness crushed me. I had nobody. I made a mistake. I started over again on my own, without the government's protection. I changed my name again, moved to DC, and that's where I met you. I felt a sharp ache behind my ribs. Part of me wanted to believe he did it to survive, to build something real. Another part screamed at me that it didn't matter. He chose deception over truth. He let me build a life on top of a lie. What about the woman in the photo? The baby? I asked. His face changed. His voice dropped low. That's Lila. She was my wife. And that little girl is Emma. She's my daughter. My stomach turned. You told me you'd never been married. I thought they were dead, he said quickly. There was a car crash, a fire. The authorities told me there were no survivors. That was the final straw. I took the new name and left everything behind. But they weren't dead. I stared at him, stunned. Lila faked her death, he said. She found out what I did, and instead of protecting me, she blamed me, said I ruined her life. She vanished, took Emma, and disappeared. I didn't know she was alive until a year ago. Why didn't you tell me? My voice cracked despite myself. Because I was afraid you'd leave. I was afraid if you knew the truth, I'd lose you and Sienna. I didn't know if Lila would come after me, but when Caleb showed up last year, I knew she hadn't let it go. Caleb? I said. So you knew he was watching us. He nodded. He's her brother. She sent him to find me. At first, he just watched from a distance. Then he tried contacting me. I told him to stay away, that I wasn't a threat, that I had a new life. I guess he didn't believe me. I felt dizzy, sick, betrayed in ways I couldn't explain. This wasn't just about a lie. This was about a whole life I never consented to. I looked down at my hands, at the ring he gave me, and wondered if anything had ever been real. I loved you, I said. I still do, and I hate myself for that. I never meant to hurt you, he said, but I couldn't tell you without putting you in danger. You already did. He stood slowly. I can leave, if that's what you want. I'll go to the police, explain everything. I won't fight you. Just promise me you'll protect Sienna. Keep her safe. I looked up at him, tears burning my eyes. You don't get to be the one making promises anymore. He nodded and walked toward the front door. He paused, glanced back once, and then left without another word. The door clicked shut, and just like that, the man I thought I married was gone. After he left, I sat alone in the kitchen for what felt like hours. The silence in the house felt different. It wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. Everything I thought I knew had been stripped away, and all that remained was the weight of the truth and the ache of betrayal. I didn't call anyone right away. I didn't even cry. I moved through the house like a ghost, checking windows, double-locking doors, looking at Sienna's drawings on the fridge, and wondering what kind of story I would one day have to tell her. I didn't want her to grow up afraid, but more than anything, I didn't want her to grow up thinking lies were love. The next morning, I called the police. I gave them the photo, the IDs, the documents I had copied. I told them everything. They opened an investigation and said they would follow up with federal agencies. They thanked me for coming forward, and I thanked them with a voice that barely held together. A week later, I was contacted by someone from the U.S. Marshals Service. They offered protection if I wanted it. At first, I said no, I didn't want to uproot Sienna's life. But then Caleb called. He didn't sound angry. He sounded tired. He apologized for the way he approached me, said he only wanted to protect his niece and bring the truth to light. He told me that Lila had disappeared again. He didn't know where she was or what she planned, but she wasn't finished. That was when I agreed to relocate. Not for myself, for Sienna. We were moved within days. New house, new state, new names. I had to leave behind everything. My work, my friends, the town where Sienna learned to walk and say her first words. I packed our lives into boxes I didn't even get to label, and I smiled for Sienna's sake while inside I was unraveling. She didn't understand, not fully. I told her Daddy had to go away for a while. She asked if he was coming back. I told her I didn't know. Some nights she still asks. She holds Rory close to her chest and says, "Will Daddy find us?" And I tell her the same thing every time. We're safe now. Because that's all I can give her. Safety, stability, love that doesn't come with secrets. I've started working again under a new name. The clients don't know my story. They don't need to. I drop Sienna off at her new school and try to act like we belong here. Some days, I almost believe it. But there are still moments. When I hear a knock I wasn't expecting, or see a car parked too long across the street, when my body goes rigid. Trauma doesn't need permission to visit. It arrives in silence and reminds you of everything you lost. I've come to understand something I never saw clearly before. Love is not a fairy tale. It's not just laughter, shared meals, and inside jokes. It's trust. It's truth. It's safety in someone's presence. Without those things, love becomes something else. It becomes control, manipulation, fear wrapped in comfort. Miles told me he loved me, and maybe in his own broken way, he did. But love that hides, love that builds walls instead of bridges, cannot survive, no matter how much you want it to. People ask me now, if I could go back, would I still have married him? Would I do it all again just to have Sienna? And the answer is yes. Not because the pain was worth it, but because she is. I carry the past with me, but I don't let it define me. I am not just a woman who was lied to. I am a mother who protected her child. I am a person who chose the truth, even when it shattered everything. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And when a stranger walks up to you in a park and says, "You're in danger," don't laugh. Don't brush it off. Don't assume your life is untouchable. Because sometimes the person sleeping beside you is living a story you were never meant to know. And once you find out, you don't get to go back. You only get to go forward with your eyes open and your heart guarded, but still beating strong. If this story moved you or made you think twice about the people we trust, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever discovered something shocking about someone close to you? Or felt like something wasn't quite right but ignored it? Let's talk about it. If you found this story powerful, please like the video. It really helps more people find it. Share it with someone who might need a reminder to trust their instincts. And if you want more real stories like this one, raw, honest, and unforgettable, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. Thanks for being here. Stay safe, stay smart, and never stop asking questions.